will sing from the keyboard, and a female will be singing. So it was all coordinated through the musician that we hired.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that should be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have tons of people performing and singing because the deck is going to be inundated with all the instruments.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep it to, I told the musician only 1 or 2 songs with vocals,
Right.
so that we didn't have tons of people constantly going up on the deck.
Yeah. Well, because singing is like a super spreader thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Singing is the worst.
You can't really
Yeah.
sing in a mask. Well, I guess
Right.
you can, but
We had a sing through of cabaret back in June. We did it outside on the lawn of Main Street Arts, and we were all 6 feet apart. We all wore masks.
yeah.
And it was really hard to sing because you
Yeah.
could barely breathe,
Right.
Everyone, you'd have to like take it off and just take a deep breath,
Yeah.
It was bittersweet.
Yeah. So you guys are kind of trying to keep it together like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the hope is that it'll be performed, when it's safe to.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm not sure where. It may be at Main Street Arts, maybe Vermont Academy. It's out of the Opera House now, so I don't know if
Yeah.
it's back. I mean, if they vote a whole bunch of new people in, which actually, that's the good that's come out of this. A whole bunch of people are getting really sort of organized, and they already have one guy has committed to run, and there's a few other people who want to run. So, that's how change happens.
Yeah,
when
definitely.
say, look, this is, you don't have our best interests at heart. We're going to do something about it. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was down there twice helping, take it apart. It was very sad.
Oh, that's totally sad, man. Oh.
Yeah.
So they just decided they didn't want it anymore?
They're not a storage facility, they kept saying. But there's nothing else booked. They aren't even doing movies now, not that it has any interference with the movie.
Right.
They just wanted us out.
Yeah.
There was a couple of people on the select board that just really didn't get it, and they just wanted us out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very contentious. It was really awful the way they really treated us really badly.
Horrible.
Awful. Yeah. Because and there was actually, after they said that we had to remove everything, then somebody on the select board had second thoughts, and he tried to reintroduce it at another meeting, but the chairperson said no. Yeah, it was too bad. They were just very non-supportive.
Yeah, be glad, John. You've got a lot of community support.
Yeah.
And you have your own building too, which is
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I heard from Donald sent me an email saying that you were canceling the October thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah.
We'll have a board meeting probably sometime next month to determine moving forward for the rest of the year. I suspect that we may consider closing the theater down for the rest of the season earlier than like we usually do in November.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's in the air.
Right. Now we're all just.
And I just heard the state of Vermont might be considering mandating masks now.
Wonderful. Really?
Yeah.
Today, Phil Scott mentioned possibly introducing a mask mandate for the state of Vermont.
Wow.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
I've been emailing him.
Wow, good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the governor of Georgia finally said he's recommending that everybody wear masks for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
He's not requiring it, but he's recommending it.
Yeah.
That does not work. Recommend. Thanks.
Right.
Oh my God,
That's what we
such a
have
good
now.
Yeah,
I was really glad to see that Shaw's is mandating it now.
that's good.
I think they would actually turn people away.
I don't
could.
know. I mean, you know, that's tricky. I mean, I know that they don't want their employees to get into any kind of, you know, scuffles with people, but,
Right.
I
Seen
don't,
that on the news quite a bit.
I
People
know.
arguing.
yeah. Let's hope not.
Mhm.
Are you expecting a bunch more people, Barbara? Did you get in?
I'm not sure, but we're still early. I haven't
Uh-huh.
heard. Yeah, I
My
haven't.
sister, my sister is not going to make it. She left me a message.
Oh, somebody's here.
Yeah, she's not going to be able to make it. Is that?
So maybe we should probably give it maybe 3 minutes or so just to wait and see.
Yeah.
I know the newcomer.
Ah, cool.
Oh, Eileen. Hi, Eileen.
Hi.
We have another author in our midst.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Eileen
Cool.
has written.
She's the author that lives down the street from me.
Yeah. This is like Writer's Row or something up here.
That's wonderful.
How many books have you written, Eileen?
14.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the poor relation down the end of the street.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So do you go into the library every day or?
I'm going in 3 days a week and then I'm working from home the other 2 days.
Yeah.
We're open for curbside delivery
Yeah.
4 days a week, and we're talking about maybe opening for appointments starting in early August.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Somebody. But yeah, it'll definitely feel better if there's actually a mask mandate, because
Mhm.
we're going to insist people have masks to come in, but
Mhm.
it would be nice if the government was on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he comes through this week. It looks good for
That's
Monday or
awesome.
Friday.
That is so great. Good for him.
Yeah, because I think he's done a pretty good job. Even though he's a Republican, I hope I'm not
I
insulting.
know, exactly. I know.
I don't think I'm insulting anybody, but he really has done a pretty good job, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been very thoughtful and he's listened to science, and yeah, he's done a good job.
Yeah.
Except for this mask thing. So
Yeah.
And one of the newest cases I was told was someone from Virginia who came up to Vermont because of our relaxed rules.
Oh, wow. Really? Wow.
So I'd like to stop that migration of people.
Yeah, really? Well, a lot of people are coming to the state parks.
yeah.
And this park ranger at Jamaica State Park actually told my sister, he said, don't come here.
Really?
He said, yeah, maybe you could come on a Tuesday or Wednesday, but he said, because she told, her and her husband are high risk.
Yeah.
And he said, we're having such a hard time keeping things clean because there's so many out of towners.
Oh no, we're supposed to go camping in September there.
Yeah, Jamaica State Park, they've been, inundated with New Yorkers and people from Massachusetts. And so we're going to try to go on Monday to Plymouth State Park. From what I've heard, because my sister's been, checking them out, she found a great camping site at Wilgus State Park. And she said that, and she basically, she reserved this campsite for the rest of the summer. And she's just going to go whenever she has time because it's only 15 minutes from her house. And it's built Wilgus State Park. It's right on,
right on the river. I think it's the only one on the river.
It's really pretty. We used to go there for picnics and walks and stuff. But she said they're so clean there. They're cleaning all the time and they're doing all kinds of precautions and stuff. So she feels
That's
pretty
great.
good about going there. But the guy at Jamaica State said, if I were you, I wouldn't come here. They were
Wow.
really, really nice. And he said, I really hate to say this because you're a Vermonter and, but he said, we can't keep up. We're having a hard time keeping up with the crowds.
Mm.
So
Ed and I
anyway.
went up to the Northern Kingdom a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
And the state park was good. Of course, it was the middle of the week, but the state park was
Yeah.
good. But the public beaches were jammed, and it was all people out of state. It was New Jersey, Massachusetts,
oh my goodness.
and that's the Northern Kingdom. That was way up there. It took us like 2.5 hours to get there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Lake
we're
Willoughby
gonna,
is very beautiful.
we're gonna check it out on Monday at Plymouth to see what it's like.
Yeah.
Because that lake is pretty good. It's kind of spread out. There's a
Right.
lot of room there.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it'll be okay.
Mhm.
But we're not going anywhere on the weekends. We don't go anywhere.
No,
Yeah.
that's lockdown time. Yeah.
Yeah, we just stay home, work in the garden,
Yeah.
and that's the time when we're going to invite people over is on the weekends.
Okay, we're coming.
Right.
We're bringing champagne. You have to.
Right,
Okay.
right. Okay, so you're on the list.
Bring a bottle.
That's when we went to Mary Ann's and Alex on the weekend. That was,
Yeah.
because we
Bring
don't want
out
to.
your glasses.
Yeah, we don't want to go anywhere. We try not even to go to the stores on the weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's 7:05. I guess we could get started if you'd like.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Barbara Ball. I'm the librarian at the Windsor Public Library. And we are so excited to have Bill Lockwood here with us tonight. Bill is a freelance contributor to the Eagle Times, the Shopper, Vermont Journal, and the Walpole Clarion. His first novel, Buried Gold, was released, whoops, somebody's here. His first novel, Buried Gold, was released by the Wild Rose Press in 2016.
26.
Megan of the Mist in 2017, Ms. Anna in 2018, and the Monsignor's Agents in 2020. He lives in Bellows Falls, and we're so glad to have him here.
Yay.
That's Miss Anna, and this is Megan of the Mist. Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is the first time I've done a Zoom reading. I've done a number of them at the bookstore in Bellows Falls and the library in Rockingham, my own library.
Yeah, there's Ann Dempsey.
And,
I just noticed.
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Hi, Ann.
Yeah. And I'm hoping she'll give me one there too for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so at my reading, since I'm a cancer survivor and I lost part of my voice, so I can't really read. So I bring people along. I've recruited some people from the pit. And actually, my regular readers are a little short supply, but one of them just signed on.
Oh,
There's Samara.
hi, Samara.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi,
we know her.
Samara. Oh,
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Bill.
Anyway, we know her from River Theater
Yeah.
and the Walpole Players. And my other two couldn't make it tonight, so we have someone from the Springfield Players to start us off. In fact, Barbara Ball, who's also a librarian. This is the intro to the book, the historical notes sets the thing.
A year after the siege of Vienna in 1529, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V garrisoned the Knights of St. John on the islands of Malta, where they held firm against a Turkish fleet through the siege of Malta in 1565. The struggle continues even today. During the Cold War of the 1950s and again in the 1980s, the fighting was not done by great armies, but instead by propagandists and secret agents, both attached to the government of the day and some not attached but equally dangerous. Malta was ruled by the Knights of St. John until the islands were taken over by Napoleon in 1798. 2 years later, the French forces capitulated to the British, who took Malta over as a protectorate. It was not until 1974 that Malta became an independent republic within the British Commonwealth. In 1929, Vatican City became unique as diplomatically its own nation state, and at the same time the headquarters of a religion with both state and church ruled over by the Pope. On May 13th, 1981, Pope John Paul II was shot and critically wounded as he entered Vatican Square by Mehmet Ali Aka, identified as a member of the militant fascist group, the Grey Wolves. On May 12, 1982, a second attempt by a bayonet-wielding traditionalist Catholic was thwarted at Fatima in Portugal. Just as the traditional red-coated British military guards at Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London carry state-of-the-art assault rifles from the times when the terrorist Irish IRA was setting off bombs, the Vatican Security Service has had to become more than the traditional pike-carrying Swiss Guard in Vatican Square that date from 1527. The Vatican is notoriously secretive about many things, but they must have had secret agents in the 1980s. They must have.
Thank you. That's the premise of what's going on. So we'll start with a little bit of the first chapter, and that's my wife, Jeannie.
Okay. Allison flipped on the TV while she waited for her morning coffee to brew. May 1st, 1983, the announcer gave the date in Italian at the start of the local newscast for Rome. She had been in Italy for almost 2 years, and her Italian had gotten pretty good. She understood everything that was being said. She looked out over her apartment window to the street in the Trastevere section of the Eternal City. It was a section full of students and the young, full of interesting restaurants and cafes. Allison was 27, and she fit right in. The date made her feel good. It meant she was ending her current tour and enlistment in the U.S. Army. And despite the charm and romance of her present duty station, she would be going home. She worked for Army intelligence and had been spending many of her recent hours sitting in cafes and walking the streets, keeping track of those thought to be enemies and who had been assigned to her. The announcer went on about how May 12th and 13th would be the first and second anniversary of the 2 assassination attempts on Pope John Paul II. There was fear of a third attempt being planned for one or the other of those days again. Oh, great, she said out loud. I'm sure we'll get involved in that. It was hardly seconds before her phone began to ring. Allison flipped up her long dark hair and shook her head as she hoisted herself from the sofa that dominated her small living room, and she crossed to the phone. It was her commanding officer. After the briefest pleasantries, he got right to the point. We're taking you off watching the local commies and such, and we're lending you to a special security unit in the Vatican. The Vatican? She had gone there as a tourist, but she had a solid Midwestern Protestant background. The current faith and religious tradition of the Italians all around her was not her thing. We got a special request from a Monsignor Di Pasquale, her commander continued. They specifically requested a woman for this job. I suppose they'll ask you to do things their nuns won't do. Their nuns? Well, I'm not Catholic, but I doubt their training is anything like what we gave you. No, I suppose not, Allison agreed. Growing up, when I lived with my parents, we went to a Midwestern Protestant church. What kind of a job is it? Don't know. In her mind, she could see her commanding officer shrug. This Di Pasquale, or one of his men, is going to contact you. Your pay and everything else will be from us. It will all be the same, but for as long as this job takes, you report to them instead of to me. Right, Allison agreed, but she was struggling to put it all together in her mind. Do I need to report somewhere like the Vatican today? She was thinking she better wear one of her business person dresses for the Vatican. No, her commander laughed. I don't think this special section of theirs has an office in the Vatican with its name on the door. They will contact you first. I gave them your phone number and I told them where you live. Okay, Allison said slowly. She knew she was getting orders. She didn't have the option to decline. But she did ask, do they know I've got only 2 months left here? They do, was her answer. I told them you're our best, and we're going to miss you while you're gone. Maybe you'll be back with us in no time at all. Good, she said. Then her commander wished her luck, and he was gone. Allison had enough time to fix herself a good strong coffee before there was a knock at the door. She had dressed in a t-shirt and cut-off jeans. She deemed that decent enough to meet a stranger, and she opened the door just a crack with her foot positioned to quickly push it shut, as her training had taught her. There was a young man dressed in black clerical garb with an inquisitive look on his face, standing in the hallway. "I'm Brother Brendan," he said in perfect English, although he had a hint of a British accent. "Are you Allison?" "I am," she agreed, and she opened the door. "May I come in?" She hesitated a second and then nodded. He was a head or so taller than she, but there was definitely a peaceful aura about him. Allison sensed she was safe. Brother Brendan stepped in just enough to let her close the door. "I work with the Vatican. I trust your people have told you about us?" "You guys work fast," she said. "Are you here to take me to the Vatican? I should dress in better clothes for that, I'm sure."
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. So now we go to Malta and do our, well, when you have a romance, you always have to have a guy and a girl, right? You can have the other things, but just, I chose the traditional. So we'll go back to Barbara, who's going to read a bit of our next character.
Despite its definite Mediterranean look and feel, Valletta, the capital and largest city on the main island of Malta, had a strong British influence from its days associated with the empire. There was an old English pub-style establishment somewhere between the harbor and the really fashionable district of the city. The room was dimly lit despite a strong afternoon sun outside. 3 ceiling fans spun all too slowly in a futile effort to cool the room. The food service part of the pub was long gone. It was now just a bar frequented by regular locals and occasional tourists, except for weekend nights when rock bands played on its makeshift stage at the far end of the room. That live music was all that was left of the time in the 60s, when it had been a hopping place full of young rockers and those out to change the world, inspired by the age of Aquarius. But that crowd had all gotten old. The world had changed. On a slow afternoon, only a handful of regulars, mostly older men of Italian descent, no women, and a single bored-looking bartender occupied the room. Max was the man behind the bar. He was definitely out of place. He was a tad overweight, in his 30s, wore a t-shirt and jeans, and was slightly sweating in the heat. But like a typical American, he had a smile for everyone. A newcomer opened and entered the heavy street door. In his 30s and athletic looking, he was dressed in black and the white collar of a Catholic priest. Max crossed down to the end of the bar. "Ah, a man of the cloth. What can I do for you?" The newcomer looked momentarily uncertain. Then he sat on the nearest stool and spoke in a slightly British accent. "I believe I'll have a beer. On draft, I have our island's local Simmons, Farsons, and Sisk. I have it in lager, stout, and pale ale." The priest thought a moment again. Then he decided, "Stout." "Excellent choice," Max complimented him. "I'm a porter man myself, but I only have that in bottles here." He moved down the bar a bit to the taps, talking as he went. "Our local wines have a bit of an aftertaste sometimes, but our beer is the best of any." Max looked back and gave the priest a proud smile. Then he drew his customer a beer. The priest waited till Max served him before he spoke again. "You say our wine and our beer, but I somehow don't think you're really a local here." "Ah, busted," Max laughed. "Yes, I'm an expat, American. Got stranded here when a rock band I was drummer for went bust on our big European tour." The priest laughed too. "Malta, I don't believe, would be a lucrative stop on anyone's European tour. But you're here too, and I would guess you're not from here either." "Yes, I suppose I am. As you say, most did too." The priest put down his glass and extended his hand. "Father Timothy here, from the big city of London on a much bigger, and I think much more cosmopolitan island. I'm Max." They shook hands and exchanged smiles. "So what's a smart priest like you doing in my bar?" "Actually, I'm looking for a particular man." Max glanced down the bar at the regulars. Father Timothy seemed to have no interest in any of them. "So who might that man be?" The priest leaned toward Max and spoke so his voice would not carry. "There's a fellow named Salvador comes in here from time to time." There may be. Max was cagey. The priest was a total stranger after all. From time to time, he meets with various people in your back room. Father Timothy glanced around, then gestured toward a door along the wall at the far end of the bar. Max shrugged. Well, if you know that much, I guess I can admit that I know who you mean. And yes, he surely does meet with various people in our back room. Says it has to do with some Richard III society.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Barbara. So, if anyone doesn't know who Richard III is, he was an interesting character. But that has nothing to do with the play except the society. And I'll leave it hanging about that. So then the two characters get together, and here's Samara.
All right. Okay, here we go. Allison finally found the bar. It was on one of Valletta's narrowest side streets. The building made it feel closed in. She walked down the busy street toward Malta's Great Harbor, thinking all the way that one misstep of her sandals would send her rolling into the blue Mediterranean. She was annoyed at herself for not wearing sneakers like a good American tourist might do. She had dressed European as cover, to blend in. The light summer dress she wore had, like the little island, a mix of European and Mediterranean cultures. The dress was thin to make her feel cool in the African heat, and European in style, to show she hadn't worn a bra. Neither had she worn any jewelry, except for a simple watch on her wrist. The guidebook said that in the 18th century, young girls in Maltese society were given simple coral necklaces, believed to ward off evil. She was trusting in her training and experience to take care of that. She found the door she was looking for. She checked the time. Then, per her training, she scanned the street and saw only an unoccupied old English Ford parked some way down the block. Okay, here we go, she said to herself. She took a hold of the door handle, took a deep breath of the hot, humid air, tossed back her hair, and opened the door. Immediately, she saw the bar was a remnant of the old days of British rule. Allison noted the regulars clustered at the other end of the bar and climbed up on the first stool inside the door. It was the same stool Father Timothy had occupied on his visit just a day before. Max immediately came down to meet her. "What'll it be?" he asked, and gave her a broad smile. "A glass of white wine," she said, and ran a hand across her forehead. The 3 whirling ceiling fans seemed to be having no effect at all on the heat in the room. "Something from a local vineyard?" Max asked. He glanced over his shoulder at the line of bottles on shelves along the wall. Allison frowned. "I've heard all the local wines have a aftertaste."
Mhm.
"Haven't tried the local wine yet?" Max asked. "You just get in?" "I've been in Rome," Allison said. "I flew here this morning." Max looked back around. "If I was a local, I'd give you an excellent green label Vitis." Is that right? Okay. Vitis, made from grapes tended by the descendants of Grand Master Jean Perossa della Valletta himself.
Mhm.
Allison did not respond to Max's flourish, but he continued, non-pulsed. "Of course, it's not the vivant détente of wines." "What?" Allison looked puzzled. Max shrugged and smiled. "You like that? I just made it up." "Bartenders," she rolled her eyes. "Sounds French. Sometimes tourists like that stuff." "They didn't tell me the bartender here was a comedian." "Sometimes it helps get me más propinas." "That's Spanish." "Right you are," Max laughed. "There was a Spanish sailor in here the other night. He taught me that. Didn't tip worth a shit, but he taught me a new phrase. It means More tips. Besides, we're both Americans. Spanish is our second language, after all. Allison frowned. How did you know I was American?
Okay, thank you, Samara. Okay, so usually at this point, I take questions. So, Barbara, whatever you want to do, but
Oh, yeah.
okay, anybody? Yes. Eileen's raising her hand. Yes.
I've noticed in your books, Bill, that you enjoy your setting in the 1980s, and I sure do too. The setting is almost nostalgic in a pre-9/11 world, and kind of straightforward cloak and dagger stuff, and I just found it a delight to read, and I just wanted to know if there's some reason that you're kind of drawn towards that decade.
Well, I was alive then, and I knew, it's like you don't have to research something that you were living. However, my next one is set in occupied France. It's World War II.
Wow.
And I read a lot of history. That's how come I know about Malta and, all that stuff in the Richard III Society and stuff like that. Well, my second book was set in Northern Ireland, and I know a lot about Irish history and the IRA and all. And that one also involves the Irish bars of Long Island, which I have experienced through my brother-in-law, let's put it that way. And but yeah, the 80s are, I know the 80s very well. And my first book was set on Long Island too, in a place that my wife's family lived. And, that's why. Paris, well, that's, it's going to be interesting. And mostly it also, takes place in France.
And Puerto Rico was inspired by
the third one was Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
That was inspired by being there with Jeannie. Jeannie did an internship, and I went down at the end. And the internship was not in the tourist mecca of San Juan, old San Juan. It was in Mayaguez, which is on the absolute other side, the west side. And Mayaguez was then called itself the tuna canning capital of the world. And there's always sort of the smell of dead fish floating in the air, along with the largest brewery in Puerto Rico was there too. And a big college where she was, the internship was where they grew up and all. But that experience, and then I love Key West, so that one ends up in Key West. It's a long answer to a short question.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, is Max Max shows up in each book, right? Is he ever gonna get his own book?
Yes, he might. He shows up briefly in the first one, but in the second one, he doesn't appear at all. He has nothing to do with the Irish stuff. The one in the Second World War, well, Max was a kid then, so he won't be in that one. But I do have a book that actually I wrote before that was never published, that I could never get a publisher for, which I'm going to rewrite, I think, one of these days. And Max is then in California, and his girlfriend is Evie, who is the hero of the first book I wrote in Long Island. And this is sort of like before that. And it has to do with sort of terror from how it's set just after the Manson killings, when everybody was scared of things in California. And Max solved the mystery.
Cool.
Of course.
Can I ask how you make yourself write? What's your strategy?
It's just
You can't stop him.
Awesome.
It's from the suffering spouse.
Just natural. I mean, I always things go through my, when I sit and if I'm eating alone or something, I always get these ideas and start writing them down. Usually it's with what I'm writing, but I've always written when I was a kid. my mother started reading the Hardy books, the Hardy boy mystery stories to me. Because parents were supposed to read to their kids, and, you know, then they would learn to be readers. So instead of starting to read the books, which I did do, but I started to try to write my own. And it really goes back that far. Things were pretty bad back then when I tried to write. But, you know, looking back, and I have none of it. But you know, I just always in the end for work. I worked with delinquent kids in Baltimore for years before coming here. And in part of what I did, I had to write court reports. So writing was, you know, looking at people and observing people. And I was having a career in social work. And then writing about it, in a sense, was always something that I did as well as my others. Then in Bellows Falls, I got involved in the newspaper, the Rockingham Renaissance, in the early 2000s, like 96 to 2007.
The restoration of the Opera House.
Yeah, the restoration of the Opera House. I started writing in the town, Bellows Falls Town Crier, so I started writing articles, you know, so I always have been doing that too, with a little breaks in between, you know. But
So you don't like make yourself sit down for 4 hours every day or anything like that, or?
No, if I have, well, just like with this thing about the theater, the cabaret and the Opera House now in Bellows Falls, I mean, I just went off a letter to the editor. Yep, boom. Like it was an article about something, you know, I review a show. I have, well, three days, I guess, to write it up. You know, you get good at knowing what you're going to write and just being able to do it.
And when I teach online, he tries to take whatever time I'm teaching in class, like he'll make himself sit at the computer. And that's when you usually do your submissions, right?
Yeah.
You do like a lot of your researching where to send things, and he'll do like a lot of the submissions, sort of like the research part, you know.
Yeah, because you always, but
I just wanted to know what Jeannie taught online.
Oh, English as a second language.
Oh, wow. Oh, great.
Yeah, in China.
Wow.
Yeah, my students are in China.
Do you teach every day?
Oh.
No, couple of days a week.
Huh.
Yeah. So.
but we're on the laptop now. She uses the laptop for teaching, and so I get to use the real computer.
Yeah. Although for one,
Which she's on a lot.
yeah, I have one student that because he can't, his particular connection doesn't seem to work on the laptop, so I have to use the regular computer. So then I have to kick Bill off, and then he'll usually write on the book because you can use the word processor.
Well, yeah. Or I go on Facebook.
So we play musical computers.
Yeah.
But that means that Bill gets to write at least a couple of times a week for at least an hour or two, right?
Yeah, and it's not just because I get the computer, then it's like a good discipline to, you know, have a time to actually do it, you know, focus.
But I mean, he's been writing like the last couple of days is because it's been so hot and we haven't gone outside that much. So we have an air conditioner in the living room. That's the only place we have air conditioning. So we've been kind of staying in the living room a lot. And you've been writing like mad the last couple of days. Like,
yeah, I'm up to page 99 on the new book, but
Cool.
that's only the first time through.
and it's really exciting too. I'm actually really excited. I've been like reading it to do some, you know, helping him edit it. And we have this friend of ours she was born in France. She lives in Bellows Falls. Katrine, her name is. And she grew up, she was born right after World War II, but she grew up right outside of Paris. But she has a lot of family that lived in Paris during the war. And her mother actually has a diary that she had translated. And so there's a lot of stuff in the diary about the mothers, the family being in France during World War II. But anyway, she's also editing it. and giving feedback. And we meet with her once in a while, and that's been very interesting, hearing what she has to say about it. And just like making sure, like, does this really sound like Paris of the 1940s? And she said she thinks it does. She's actually really excited about it. So I'm really, I think it's going to be a really good one. I mean, I really want to see what's going to happen next. And when he tells me, well, I just figured out such and such, and I said, well, what happened? What did you do? Oh, they were on the train. I said, well, what happened? And he said, oh, so it's actually, but that genre of fiction is my favorite. World War II. I love stories. You know, I've watched every masterpiece theater ever that took place during World War II. Well, we both have, you know, we both enjoy that time period.
So on seniors list, Bill, was there a person that you were able to lean on about what was realistic for Malta area?
No, I've never met anybody who's been to Malta. That was, but I have a guidebook from the 80s of Malta.
Oh, cool.
I got
That's hardcore.
Street was,
Yeah.
St. Nicholas Church and all these kind of things. But in Malta too, like on the cover, there's they actually gave me what I asked. One of the things I asked for on the cover was a two-spired church. There's a belief in Malta that they have two spires on their churches, and there's a clock on one and the other has a fake clock face. And it's to confuse the devil, because if the devil doesn't know what time it is, he can't take your soul.
No.
And, I mean, that was,
Damn that devil.
I got all kinds of little stuff out of that, guidebook on that.
That's cool.
Yeah, Rome, I've never been to Rome. Jeannie's been there. I've been in Italy. I've been to Venice twice, but I've never been to Rome. I've been to Paris. I've been to.
You got to pick your cover. It wasn't some random chick that was wearing too short shorts.
No, well, that's a whole nother thing. It's a whole practicality thing about getting published. They ask you what you want on the cover. And I said a couple standing in front of a two-spired church. So, that's...
They did good.
Yeah. But this one, Megan of the Mist, I said a woman in with a turtleneck sweater and jeans and running shoes. Because it's in Ireland. And Ireland is cold and damp, but they did give me the running shoes.
Is it a bikini? That's funny.
And they're really they don't want you to change. You have to go with what their artist says, unless it's something like really, really, really off base. I mean, when they sent the mock-up for the cover on this, they had left out the apostrophe.
Yeah.
And so they changed that.
Yeah.
But to get them to change the picture or the artist's rendition, they're very persnickety about that.
Yeah. And Anna is the pilot on a tuna boat.
And she looks like a movie star, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
There's other things too, like I have to have at least 38,000 words to have a print copy and not just electronic. So, while I'm writing it, you ask what's going to happen next. Well, or how many different things are going to happen before the end. Well, I keep checking the word count before I could tell you the answer. I get a minor, usually around 45,000 words.
But I'm hoping this next one is going to have a sequel, because she ends up in Casablanca.
Oh.
And before he got too much into the book, I got him this book, nonfiction about Casablanca. And it's a pretty thick book, but it's all kinds of stuff that happened in Casablanca before and during the war. Stuff that you would never know because it's just not very well known. But at the end of the book, they have a little section, what's true and what's not about the movie Casablanca. And actually, a lot of the stuff from that movie is actually true. But she sort of ends up in Casablanca, the lead character. And it's just absolutely ripe for a sequel. You gotta have a sequel.
Well, I may start writing sequels. I don't know. I'm not.
Casablanca, you
Yeah,
gotta have a sequel.
in my mind, they all sort of stand alone.
Yeah.
Huh.
A lot of people seem to like series, though. You think that's true, you guys? I mean,
I do.
a lot of
Yeah.
people seem to like series.
Yeah, because you can get to know the characters better, you know?
Yeah.
Then you feel like you want to know more about them in the next chapter or the next book.
You're allowed to connect with them better.
Yeah.
And
Well,
strictly from a marketing point of view, I don't know if your publisher says this to you, Bill, but mine is always, it's great to have a series because, and the more books, the better, because you can always give away the first one. You know, in electronic,
Yeah.
you give away the first one and you hook them and then they buy all the rest. So
Yeah. Well, mine
the
sort
more
of.
episodes, the better.
Yeah. Mine doesn't push it, but it's there. Yeah.
So are all of your books part of a series? Or you have more than
My
one?
books, my first 3 books for adults, I have 2 young adult series that are 3 books each.
Mm.
And I wrote these 3 standalone books for adults, and I realized that they span the 19th century. So when I started hearing about this series thing, I was like, if there's anything can put books together. So you know, like Bill could do it with his 80s books, or any book that's got Max in it. You know, you just make them a series.
Yeah.
So those 3 books that had not very much to do with each other, I just call it the American Century series, and we're off to the races. Yes.
Yeah.
Want to get through the 19th century. And now I'm writing a Civil War series. I have a World War II series and a Civil War series.
Yeah.
Really.
And aren't they all nurses, or some of them nurses in the Civil War?
Oh, in the Civil War, no. The first one is the woman dressed as a man.
Okay.
She gets through the whole Civil War. That's the really long one. And the second one is a nun. That one of those forbidden love stories of a blinded soldier who falls in love with a nun and doesn't realize it's a nun, and he's very Catholic.
Yeah.
I read it. It's
Yeah.
a secret agent nun. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Secret Agent.
So Bill, do you keep a file of potential ideas for future novels?
Yeah, I mean, I have some files. Yeah. I
There's
have
lots of
notes.
notebooks too.
Notes, yeah. I mean, but I don't just do, I have a short story I've been sending out. I've got a short story that's going to be published in a literary magazine in the fall. It's called The Kids Won't Leave, and it's in Two Hawks Quarterly, which is a literary magazine of Antioch University in Los Angeles. But I spend a lot of time sending out, short stories. Not that I've had many, but you get a lot of rejections. And then I have another novel that's about a farm in Vermont, told through the eyes of a teenage girl, where marijuana is the cash crop, and that's 80s too. But I think that's more literary than, the romance publishers. So I've been trying to get an agent for that. So I've been sending it to the agents and being rejected. But,
I've never seen anybody take rejection so well.
well, my first one.
He's so good at it. Like, oh, whatever.
Barry Gold went to 113 either agents or publishers before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Writers have to be very persistent.
Yeah.
Go
I
through
mean,
all
over
the
a
numbers
number of
until you get the
years.
yes. Yeah. Bill, the things I enjoy the most in your writing are your characterization, which I think is great, your dialogue, which is wonderful and really shows your theater history, and I love the atmosphere. I really go to Malta and I go to Rome through your books in Key West, and
That's good. Thank you.
they work very well as like a travelogue for me, and really beautifully done. And I'm wondering if one comes easier, or you enjoy one aspect more than another in your writing, your characterization, your dialogue, and your atmosphere setting?
Not really. I mean, I like describing places intrigue me. Like you say, Key West, they end up tied up at Mallory Square, and it just always intrigued me that Mallory Square, nobody knows its name. I mean, I know all this useless information, but Mallory Square is named after a guy named Stephen Mallory, who was the Secretary of the Navy, but it was the Confederate Navy,
Oh,
which just seems very ironic to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, just Mallory, and people go there for the sunset. It's that's the big thing. And it's all these street entertainers, and, you know, it's like a big party every night. It's just a fascinating place. So I put that in the book, you know.
I hope
I
Oh.
enjoyed all the food in this book. I want to get Max to cook for me. I was like, oh my God, this guy.
Well,
She's
I'm his food consultant and his language consultant. He always,
Awesome.
you know, I'm the one who like gives him all the he'll say, what's a good stew that they put all kinds of stuff in France, and you know, and I'll say, oh, it's a pot au feu, you know. So yeah, my years of being fascinated with other languages and cultures and, you know, cookbooks. You know, I've got, he one time asked me, what are some, what would they have on an appetizer plate in Italy? So
that was for this.
Yeah,
that was for
yeah.
the Monsignor.
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I get to do some fun stuff like that. I hope that one of these days you write a book that takes place in Vienna and or Budapest, because those are like our two, probably like besides Paris, like the favorite places that we've ever been to.
Mm.
And they're such fascinating cities. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't know. The thing is, people say to you, oh, you ought to write a book about this, or you write a book there, you know, but, well, okay, fine, but I need 48,000 words, you know, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I would love those settings. I could do a book in those settings. I love also Constantinople. That's what I'm thinking about for the next one down the line. Right after the First World War, that was a place where there was a lot of international intrigue. And, you know, a lot of old hotels, you know, interesting people running around. So,
Yeah.
Oh, and we were in Prague in Czechoslovakia just very shortly before the Iron Curtain came down. And that was surreal. We have some interesting experiences from that. I bet you could use some of the, you know, the black, you know, we were specifically told by, I used to organize trips when I was teaching in high school to Europe and Quebec for my language students, and their parents would come along sometimes too. And so we took this trip to Europe. It was like a month-long trip all over Europe. And so we got on the bus in Prague, and the tour guide specifically told us not to take any black market money. If anybody comes up to you and offers you money or exchange, don't agree, you know. And then like in the next breath, this wasn't there a guy like on the bus?
No, she went down. She went over to one of the other teachers and offered him a black market transaction for all of us.
You know, I mean,
she went down the island.
There was stuff like that, like all over the place. It was so bizarre. And you had to spend all your money before you left the country. Like you couldn't take out any Czechoslovakian money out of the country.
That's bizarre.
So we were on this tour bus, and when we got to the last rest stop, before you left Czechoslovakia, all the kids got out and they went into the rest stop and they started buying everything they could buy because they had to spend all their money. And so they all had like these bags of sodas and candy and all this kind of stuff because, you know, they weren't supposed to, you know, they had to spend all the money, well, you know, before they left the country. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah. We were in Czechoslovakia again. 2 years later, she went to an English teachers conference in Bratislava, which is in the Slovak Republic, but it was still Czechoslovakia, and that was after the communists. So it was fascinating to see the difference.
Yeah, it was a big difference. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, so
when can we expect your next book, Bill?
I don't know, about a year. They take about a year. Once they go to the publisher, they take about 7 months for the editing process. I mean, I'm part of the editing process too, but it's a long time. I mean, people ask me about this book. Well, it's been a long time since I wrote it, actually.
Yeah.
Down to it, you know.
But actually, with the other books, didn't you get them in September and then they were published in the spring?
Yeah.
So maybe it's not a year.
Well, no, it's not a year, but
because you're thinking you're going to be
well, I would
finished
say the
before
time
the
it
end of the
takes.
summer?
It takes about 7 months though once it goes to the publisher. So
Yeah.
I'm counting some time to write it. Although
You do have to write.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
with the virus stuff going on, maybe this
Right.
will be quick.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character in any of your books?
Well, Max, I mean, Max is probably the character who says what I would say.
Cool.
But I mean, there's all these other characters who have to come up with what they say. So you have to think, I don't know, what do you call it, universally or something. And they probably say a lot of what I would say too. I mean, I think it's be harder being women, but I don't know. I think I figured that out. But maybe I can't relate to what they say as well. But I, you know, like I say, for years as a social worker, I observed people. And in 2 of my books, I have mental health people. I mean, I worked in mental health a little bit too. I had a lot of cases that involved that. And I have 2 characters in both the first book and the second book that are definitely doing things that are the symptoms of certain mental stuff that I definitely observed in my work. And I know how those people, you know, talk. They loose associate, you know, is one of them, you know, goes from one thing to another.
You did, for a couple of, was it about a year? You worked in the a group home for mentally ill, like outpatients, like a residential home.
Yeah, state jobs are hard to get. So I worked for 20 years for the state of Maryland, but when I came up here, it took me 5 years to get hired by the state of Vermont. And I only got myself in because of those 20 years in another state. I got myself, you know, in 5 years. So in the meantime, I worked up in Claremont for a while in a mental health group home.
He has some stories from that place. Some of the characters, oh my God, he has like a whole compendium of episodes and characters and different funny things that happened. And that's where is that where he met Alex? No.
Yeah, well, no, Alex worked with the developmentally disabled, and we worked in the same agency.
Okay, that's the difference.
Mary's husband, Alex.
Right.
Alex and I were working at developmental services in County. I got a better job with them And then I was a coordinator in home placements, which were like foster care for, adults. And
But him and Alex would have like,
Well, he
a
was
drink, coffee or something.
well, he was a case manager, and we would take clients we had together out sometimes.
Because the clients had to socialize.
Yeah, but this one kid was I call him a kid because he was like 30, but he still was very childlike. And, he was very nonverbal. So Alex and I would just jabber away. We'd take him out for milkshake. We used to go to the ice cream place on the or that Pleasant Street thing.
In Claremont?
In Claremont, yeah. I remember that. We had another guy that we took to the drag races in Claremont Raceway.
I went to one of those drag races.
Yeah.
Did they have Confederate flags?
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
But, social work is a fun thing to be in. Actually, if you take it right. It can be rough, too. There's a whole other side of it.
Yeah.
You see some pretty awful stuff.
Sure.
How many years did you work in benefit?
Well, I spent my last years of about 8 years in benefit, doing benefits.
Well, welfare.
Yeah, welfare benefits.
That was, that seemed
I did welfare to work for
that
that.
seemed a bit depressing.
Well, it can be, yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Any
Yes.
other questions? Any?
well, say this, anybody wants to get the book, like I said, you got it at the library, but you can also order it through the publisher, the Wild Rose Press,
Mhm. Or Amazon.
or Amazon.
I got my signed copy at the Rockingham bookstore, at the Bellows Falls bookstore.
Oh, right,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
signed up a few copies.
She'll order it for you. Or she has some copies
Yeah.
there, right?
Got it right up front. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anyone's in Windsor and wants to buy it in Bellows Falls, I'd be happy to pick it up and deliver it from there. So
Wow. That's nice of you,
Real
Barbara.
library.
it's commute.
Wow. It's a nice drive, though. Do you take
Yeah.
Route 5 to come down?
Well, we'll say I do the interstate, but
Yeah.
it's nice. Yeah, it's quick. Oh. Phil, this has been so great. Thank you so much. It's so very, very
Thank
cool.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
attending.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us, Barbara.
Thank you, Bill.
Yay. Thanks for coming. Thank you. I look forward to your next book. I look forward to catching up on reading your previous ones as well.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to seeing everybody in the
Yeah.
flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
For the next one, coming to Windsor,
Yeah.
Sounds good. That would be wonderful. Definitely. Even outdoor seating, we can do that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's right.
As a social worker, when I worked in the Springfield district, Windsor is part of the Springfield district, and I was from time to time what they called outposted at the Windsor Resource Center. So I would spend an afternoon in Windsor.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and especially Bill and Jeannie for being here and putting it on. This was just really, really great.
Thank you so much for suggesting it, Barbara.
Yay. It was great to see everybody, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice
Thank
to
you so
see
much.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mwah.